guys, and welcome back to our channel. As the FAFO season continues, tables have turned and Maga supporters are realizing that left-wingers were right all along after all. Now, in a series of eye-opening videos, individuals are sharing their thoughts on the recent election results and the surprising revelations that have come to light. In the videos, one of the ladies points out that many Pamkala women prioritize the interests of their Pamkala male counterparts over those of women, minorities, and oppressed groups. Despite being highly educated and aware of the injustices faced by these groups, they chose to vote against their own interest. Meanwhile, a man is also sounding the alarm for blue-collar workers, warning them that the president they voted into office isn't quite the champion of the working class they thought he was. With plans to dismantle the National Labour Board, which has protected workers' rights since 1935, it's clear that their interests are not being represented. Now, as we take a look into these videos, we'll explore the shocking truths and harsh realities that are being exposed, from the erosion of workers' rights to the surprising ways in which social security and Doge are being impacted. It's time to take a closer look at what's really going on. So with that said, let's take a look at these videos as different people share their thoughts on this. I'll be right back.
We severely underestimated the amount of women around us who will never be able to stop seeking the approval and validation of the white men around them. And y'all really exposed yourself with the results of this election. These white women who voted against our interests, these are the women that we went to high school with, that we were best friends with in college, that we played sports with our whole lives. But they chose to listen to their dads. They chose to listen to their boyfriends or their husbands. They chose to put the interests of the white men around them in their lives above the interests of women, above the interests of minorities, above the interests of oppressed people. I will never be able to wrap my mind around that. How you can be a highly educated woman, see how women around you are being treated, see how minorities around you are being treated, and still choose to value the opinion of the white men around you the most and vote for their interests. One of the most important women in my life married a rich white man, and she chose to vote for his interests instead of the interests of her 3 daughters. The silence from all of these women right now who could not bring themselves to vote for Harris, to vote for another woman in this election, is shameful, and we will not forget.
This message is for the blue-collar workers. If that's not you, go ahead and find yourself at the corner of that door. Guess what? The guy that you voted into presidency, the one that you said was for the working class, actually is not. He just said he wanted to dismantle the NLRB, which is a National Labor Board that was made in 1935 that you guys depend on to get paid. He wants to weaken your union, so then that way you guys can't try to fight for better wages or benefits to make sure that you guys are okay where you're working at. And he wants to exploit you guys so he can have wage theft, so then that way you guys can't say anything about it when they take money away from you from working too hard. And he wants it so that companies can cut wages and benefits without even telling any of you guys. So you guys would have no idea, just one paycheck's fine and the next. And you now officially can be fired for opening your mouth for wanting to make a union or organize so that way you guys can get better pay. And without your union, your guys' wages are going to drop. And guess what? Ding ding, surprise. He's all for corporations making a ton of money while the rest of us fly in the dirt. It's almost kind of like you guys didn't listen on purpose just to see like, oh, well, maybe he's playing around. Welcome to Around and Find Out.
So Trump's Doge administration has just admitted they are moving forward with Project 2025's plan to cut Social Security and Medicare. Now, while most of us pay Social Security on 100% of our income, they pay it on less than 1%. And about 15 seconds into the new year, they're done paying their Social Security. Right now, if you make about $168,000 a year, you don't pay Social Security on anything above that. And if they just raised it to $250,000 a year, we could pay for Social Security for a very long time. And if you made billionaires pay their fair share, we could fund Social Security forever. It would not be a problem. We could keep the retirement age where it is, and we could increase the rate that people collect with the line of inflation. The problem is that wages have not increased at the same rate of inflation, and the gap between regular, normal working people and billionaires and millionaires has just increased over the year, and it's made the problem worse. It is not the working class people who have made this problem worse. It is millionaire and billionaire people who are hoarding money and not paying their fair share of the taxes. So it's going to be up to us when they bring this stuff up to want to cut it, to be loud, to call our Congress people to get involved, and don't let them get away with it.
What kind of a man baby do you have to be to post something like this? Come on, man. Are you kidding me? T-Rump, donut, orange. A wonderful human being who happened to be one of our past presidents just passed away. He's done more for human beings outside of being president than you have ever done in your entire life. Also, he was never found guilty of SAing. He wasn't a fraudster. He wasn't a tax evader. He never stole money from a children's cancer charity. And yes, to honor him, the flag should be at half-mast on your hideous inauguration day, if you make it that far. Wow. What kind of brat? What kind of boo 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 dude do you have to be? I love that the feelings crowd acts like this, and this is their leader. This is the leader of the feelings crowd. Think about that. Think about that. Put a donut all up in his feels. You could never be half the man that Jimmy Carter was. Ever. That's fact.
Vivek Ramaswamy is going through what I need every immigrant, first-gen, and second-gen American to understand very deeply. No matter how much you try to assimilate, no matter how much you try to talk like them, dress like them, move up the corporate ladder, take the bullshit up relentlessly, you are always going to just be another slur to them. Because it's so funny what Vivek Ramaswamy is talking about in his tweet. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Vivek essentially made a tweet stating that Americans need to prioritize more so the valedictorian over the jock. They need to prioritize the math Olympiad over the, and I don't know, some other nonsense that he concocted in his head. And I think what's funny about that, more so than anything else, is that what he wants is for Americans to have zero work-life balance. What he is describing, all of these parents who immigrate into the U.S. and give birth to children here or bring children here, and then raise them to have no social life, no social skills, but literally can work for a corporation day in and day out, asking for no time off, no paid leave, no sick leave, none of that. They want you to be a robot. They want you to be another cog in the machine for capitalism. And so many immigrants come to the United States thinking that if they just do that, if they just be the cog in the machine, and all these ungrateful Americans are just being so ungrateful and don't want to work and all that shit, they can just rise up. And very obviously by slurs that are being hurled at this man, who by all intents and purposes is going to be one of the most powerful people in America, it should be incredibly telling that they never gave about you. You were always a token and you were going to get spent at some point or another. And I also think it should be more telling to more immigrants that the only thing that people seem to value in you as a human being with complex ideas and thoughts is the work in which you will put into the system. Not who you are, not anything about your culture, not anything about the arts and the creativity that you have, only that you can work in the machine and shut up and not complain about it. That's all they want out of you. And if you can't do that, they are simply going to replace you with somebody else who will. So why on God's green earth are you giving all of your attention, all of your time, all of your capabilities to people who don't care about you in the name of trying to find the American dream? And I say this as somebody who is first gen. I did the bullshit. I got the engineering degree. I wasted away much of my teen years and early adulthood trying to be a part of the system because it felt like that's what I was supposed to do. My parents had immigrated here. They had given up the lives in which they knew to try to give their children whatever they could. And all I ended up seeing out of that was my mother, who was overworked and overrun by the state, who never was promoted, even after getting her master's degree. And I recognized, why the would I bend over backward for a corporation of any fucking kind who is just going to use me as a diversity pick and then throw me away when I'm no longer worth it? I will work as much as I need to get that paycheck and go home. And if more immigrants understood this, if more first gen, second gen understood this, there wouldn't even need to be this nonsense of sending all these jobs other places and yada yada yada. They are literally just looking for cheaper labor. They are literally using you for cheaper labor because you won't complain. So when you're barely making it by, when you're suffering, when you have no life outside of your job, you have to understand that you're placating to the violent system because you think you're above all these Americans who don't want to work, and they still. So let's think a little bit smarter and more critically about these systems and the global impact that they have.
Well, folks, there you have it. There's a MAGA quake going on right now. MAGA supporters are so nervous that they're shaking the ground. Oh my goodness. They are just up in arms with full nervousness because they made a mistake, or they were duped into making a mistake. Nope. Let me tell you something. There ain't that much duping in this world. You own this one. Don't go blaming Donald Trump, because I'm not for Trump, but I will defend Trump. He told you right to your face. For a long time, he's been you. People told you. Some of the stuff that he said was so outrageous that even a person with limited ability to comprehend would understand he's a... No, you went along with it. You fell along the excuses of milk, bread, and eggs. But Thanksgiving and Christmas says otherwise. Look it up. So now they're shaking in their boots. Now they're starting to realize that this master plan of getting rid of the Latinos and labeling them into being these bad, horrible criminal terrorists isn't the case. Okay? They want them out to give the jobs to the MAGA crew. The jobs that the MAGA crew from get-go don't want. And to add salt to injury, the high-tech jobs are going to give them to the Indians because they have the character to accept lower pay. Wow. So finally the master plan is unraveling and MAGAs are shaking. Hence, the MAGA quake is in play, folks. Oh, I swear, I wish I was making this up, but I'm not. I'm not. Folks, we tried to tell you. We warned you. You were shown, and you chose to ignore it. You treated this election like a Jerry Springer show, Maury Povich. You thought this was funny. Now what? And for those of you who didn't vote, you don't have any say in this. You don't have one say in it. Just don't say shit. You forfeit that right. But for those of you who did not want to vote for a woman, this is your... You got 4 years of this. And you could cut it in half if you know what I mean. Vote for the Democrats in 26 and stop them dead in his tracks. And the whole entire GOP party. And stop with this, I'm a conservative. What does that even mean? It means you're cheap. It means you don't want to progress. Okay, you don't want to move forward. You don't want to advance. You're a conservative. I own the libs. Woke won't get me. My children are not going to go to school and become whatever it is you were told. People, I'm telling you, I'm going to say it. God don't like ugly, and he's not crazy about beauty. I've said this over and over again. You don't know what that means? Listen, you didn't want to vote for a woman because she was a woman and a woman of color. That by itself is its own sin. You hear me? And you committed that sin. And now you're going to have to pay for it. It's as simple as that. Because the fact that you lied, that you couldn't afford milk, bread, and eggs, because after COVID, you got double unemployment, didn't pay your landlord, you got stimulus check, many took PPP loans, went on vacations, overextended themselves, charged their credit cards up to the gills, not realizing the money was going to run out, and now you're in debt. You're up to your eyeballs in debt. And now you turn around and blame Joe Biden and the Democrats. And I can't afford the milk and the bread and the eggs. But yet, you spend a ton of money on Christmas and going out on Thanksgiving. So don't give me this bullshit. People, you see the guy upstairs? You can't lie to him. He sees it all, whether you believe in him or not. So this is the penalty for your sin. Again, 4 years, cut it down in half. And just stop running with the lines, the bullshit. I'm a conservative and all. Stop it. Stop it. You know what you are? You're a parrot. You're a follower. And forgive me, I'm not here to want to slam you and make fun of you. Although I know I am in so many ways. But for once in your life, use the left side of your brain and cut this. What made you think that a rich person has got your best interests at hand? Oh, I guess you're the guy who settles for that turkey on Thanksgiving or Christmas, right? Gotcha. Well, it's up to you. The ball's in your court. The MAGA quakes in play. What are you going to do? Are you going to get under the table? And hopefully nothing falls on you? Or are you going to get your sea legs and ride out the wave?
My daddy? First of all, my daddy black. He not orange or puke. Secondly, he ain't even a daddy to his own mother kids. And lastly, Elon Musk is his daddy, which makes him your mother too.
Maga, why are you calling Trump daddy? Let's be real. Are you trying to hurt our feeling? Is that what that is? Because you're not like us. They're not like us. We don't get emotionally invested in the candidate of the party we support, because that would be like being in a cult and people in the political world work for us. At the end of the day, they work for us. Or maybe you're trying to be funny? Ooh. Are you trying to be funny? Are you just confused? Like, do you think that, like, because Trump's president, we just mope around all day? Do you think that we don't have lives and know how to separate? Because that's not it. I know your whole life revolves around Daddy Trump. Let's call him what it is, right? Your little daddy. But we don't do that. So I just want you guys to try again. You know that's weird, right? No one's laughing. Everyone's really weirded out by you.
You are the minority right now. The majority of America has voted red. And I feel like no one has taken a second to ask themselves why so many people have voted for Trump.
I do not need to question why the white majority chose the white majority. That has been pretty consistent throughout human history. I do need to consider why a group of people who consider themselves more educated than their ancestors, less racist than their ancestors, so over 90% of black women say no and not pause. Over 90% of black women said danger, and you didn't listen. Even now, you're still not concerned about it. Why? Black women are the Cassandras of Troy of today. We can so clearly see into the future because we have never once forgotten the past. We know all the signs of an abuser because we have been abused by everyone. And yet you are not concerned over why 90% of black women and over 80% of black men saw who you were voting for and said no. People who have dealt with some of the worst racism and abuse in all of human history decided to vote against you, and you're not concerned about that. People who have been affected by racism and abuse are scared, and you're not questioning that. Instead, you're asking us to question why white people chose white people. You're trying to convince us that because you're in the majority, you're correct, as if the majority did not do slavery, as if the majority did not do the Holocaust. The majority has been wrong over and over again. So my question to you, as people who claim to be not racist, why are you not concerned that people of color are concerned? Why?
Hey there, friends. Hi. How you doing? Folks, I do believe I have encountered a new least favorite form of dumbfuckery. Did you know that by saying you will not in fact stand shoulder to shoulder with a bigot, it is now in fact doing a bigotry? At least that is what I have been led to believe over on the play button place. I am not sure these some were being serious at least 24 times these dumb have told me what I was doing is bigotry. So folks, what say ye? Am I engaging in bigotry because I refuse to go into battle with someone standing beside me who sees others as less than themselves? Or are the same some bitches that are screaming about solidarity now just sad because it turns out they picked the wrong side? Anyways, now y'all have you a wonderful evening. Keep the boots out of your mouth, and remember that the golden rule will always remain yeehaw law, and I will see y'all down the line.
Now, these videos are a reminder of the harsh realities of the current political landscape. The commentary from the lady about palm color women prioritizing the interests of their palm color male counterparts over those of women, minorities, and oppressed groups is particularly poignant. Now, studies have shown that a significant percentage of palm color women voted for Donald Trump in the 2016 presidential election, despite his divisive rhetoric and policies that harm marginalized communities. And this phenomenon can be attributed to the pervasive nature of internalized misogyny and narcissism, which can lead individuals to prioritize their own privilege and status over the well-being of others. Now, the man's message to blue-collar workers is also spot on. The Trump administration's policies have been detrimental to the working class, from dismantling labor unions to rolling back regulations that protect workers' rights. The proposed dismantling of the National Labor Board is a prime example of this. Now, according to a report by the Economic Policy Institute, the Trump administration's policies have resulted in a significant decline in union membership and a corresponding increase in income inequality. Furthermore, the administration's rollback of labor regulations has put workers' lives at risk, as evident from the increased number of workplace fatalities and injuries. The impact on Social Security is also a critical concern. The Trump administration's proposals to cut Social Security benefits and privatize the program would have devastating consequences for millions of Americans who rely on it for their livelihood. Now, a report by the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities found that the Trump administration's proposed cuts to Social Security would result in a significant reduction in benefits for low-income workers, further exacerbating income inequality. Now, I want us to take a look at Trump's election victory and workers' rights, the not so good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, Trump offered scant detail on the campaign trail about what labor policies he might enact if he was elected. Much of his focus in this regard was on his promise to raise tariffs to protect American jobs and to carry out the largest deportation operation in the history of the country, which would affect millions of undocumented workers. But according to far-reaching analysis in the Washington Post, based on interviews with 8 former Trump officials and 7 conservative labor experts, Trump's labor policies are likely to focus on firing Biden's appointments to the National Labor Relations Board, which laid the ground for a number of significant union drives, as seen at Amazon and Starbucks, for example. Overhauling federal overtime rules so that fewer workers are eligible for overtime pay, limiting the access low-wage workers, particularly those in the gig economy, have to rights and benefits, and loosening workplace health and safety protections, amongst other measures. It has also been suggested that ending federal taxes on tips and taxes on overtime pay could be on the cards, although some economists have suggested that such a move would come at a significant economic cost while widening inequality. Now, Trump is pro-deregulation, anti-union, and unabashedly pro-business. His biggest backer during this election was the ultra-conservative, anti-union Tesla boss Elon Musk, and his policies during his first term in office reflected this. According to the AFL-CIO, President Trump spent 4 years in office weakening unions and working people while pushing tax giveaways to the wealthiest among us. Now, he stacked the courts with judges who want to roll back people's rights on the job. He made people less safe at work. He gave big corporations free rein to lower wages and make it harder for workers to stand together in a union. For example, he issued various executive orders designed to curtail the power of unions, particularly those representing federal workers. He stacked the National Labor Relations Board with appointees who tended to vote in favor of employers rather than workers. He failed on his pledge to bring back well-paying manufacturing jobs to states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Ohio. He cut funding to the Department of Labor by 21%, and he did not support calls to increase the federal minimum wage, which has remained $7.25 US per hour since 2009, although the minimum wage did not change under the Biden-Harris administration either. Now, a question that some people are asking is, you cannot ignore the fact that Trump won the popular vote by a significant margin. How then do you explain his support from working-class voters in the face of his anti-worker position? Now, there are multiple factors behind the popular support for Donald Trump. Many people remember a time pre-COVID, pre-war in Ukraine when they had more money in their pocket, and they attribute that to Trump's economic stewardship rather than wider global events. They also buy into his claims to represent an alternative to the status quo, the Washington swamp, that has ignored the voices of ordinary people. One also cannot ignore the appeal of his aggressively nativist, xenophobic, and anti-immigration stance for a certain section of the voting public who look down the ladder for the cause of their economic disgruntlement rather than up. Now, when we talk about how Trump administration cuts could hurt Medicare, far from the noise of campaign season, research and interest groups have been quietly assessing the financial impact for California if President-elect Donald Trump and his administration follow through on their threats to reduce federal assistance to states. It is more direct concern than it might appear, and it goes right to the heart of the state's ability to care for its own. It's huge, said Scott Graves, budget director for the Californian Budget and Policy Center. A lot of people, when they think about the California budget, think that it must mean state revenue is being used to fund state services, but that's not how it actually works. In reality, California relies on federal funds to help pay for all sorts of programs. That's especially true of Medicaid, the state's version of Medicaid, which provides health care services to more than 14 million California residents, including low and moderate income families, seniors, and kids. More than half of all medical enrollees are Latino. Now, those services are crucial, but they are also heavily dependent on federal dollars, and they appear to be one of the areas that Trump's administration may target for reductions, especially if the incoming president makes good on a campaign platform of reducing taxes on corporations and the wealthy, leaving the federal government with less revenue overall. How deep could those cuts go? Although it's still a thought exercise, the Budget and Policy Center's researchers say the potential reduction in federal revenue for California could land in the $20 billion to $30 billion range, a significant chunk of the state's budget for medical. The possibilities are chilling, Graves said. There is just a broad range of social services that could be at risk of federal funding reduction. Now, California is not the only state likely to be affected by these cuts. From the sun-kissed beaches of Florida, like every state in the country will be impacted by these cuts. The vulnerable populations who rely on Social Security and Medicaid, the elderly, the disabled, and low-income families are not unique to California. They exist in every state, and they will all be affected by these cuts. In fact, many states will be hit even harder than California. States like West Virginia, Kentucky, and Mississippi, which have higher percentages of residents living below the poverty line, will be disproportionately affected by the cuts to Medicaid. Similarly, states like Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont, which have higher percentages of elderly residents, will be severely impacted by the cuts to Social Security. Now, the cuts will also have a ripple effect on state economies, as reduced funding for Social Security and Medicaid leads to reduced spending power for beneficiaries, which in turn affects local businesses and communities. We have finally come to the end of the video, but what do our viewers have to say? Share your thoughts, your views as well in the comment section. Thank you for always watching, and see you in our next video as we bring you another interesting video.